Now, now we're being recorded. Okay.
Yeah, now it's for
Now
real.
we're being recorded. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. Welcome to MVP Office Hours, October 20th, 2023. Super excited. This is the last day of my marathon month. So the rest of October is gravy at this point. So we are a community of people that get together to ask questions and give answers and get smart about Salesforce stuff. What I want to talk to you all about is that we meet on the first and third Fridays of every month. You can find us on LinkedIn. Dale and myself and Squire are all there. Sometimes on Twitter, not always, or the X, whatever that's called. And we're also we're everywhere. We have we have Steve Molis in the house. Hello, Steve. MVP Office Hours US at gmail.com does exist, but we recommend posting to the community before you send us an email, because the email will give you an auto response where the community will give you crowdsourcing. But make sure you register. You see us every first and third Friday. Next slide, Squire. I don't even know what screen I'm looking at. Holy cow. All right. I got a new computer. I got a new job. It's all been crazy. Our next call is November 3rd. It's a Friday. And registration is at the bit.ly MVPOH, and the recordings are available. Thank you, Andrew, for that reminder on YouTube. Use our hashtags if you mention us anywhere. We'll appreciate that very much. And we ask that everybody participate, share your experience and your insights, recommendations. Everybody's an MVP here. We all like what you bring to the game. If you have questions, post it in the chat so that we can get y'all in order and get in line appropriately. Feel free to post any links to the chat so that we can share them and get them in the presentation. And then we do recommend sharing your screen, but do not share any private data or information, PII, PHI, personal photos, all that good stuff. Because we are recording the session, and while you may be comfortable sharing it, your clients or your customers may not. We want to have fun and be informal, but we also want to make sure you all keep your jobs and we keep it professional and positive. The internet's forever. We like you all to be employed. Next slide. We have community events coming up. North Africa Dreaming, Florida Dreaming, Mara Dreaming, Nonprofit Dreaming in Chicago. I'm very excited about. I'm registered. I'll be there November 1st and 2nd if anyone's going to be around. And then we have official Salesforce events. The World Tour events are coming through. Minneapolis, Philadelphia, Seattle, Atlanta, Chicago, December 6th. I'll be there. And New York, December 14th. All of this can be found success.salesforce.com/events, I think, or conferences, community/conferences.
You make it so hard to find that link. Don't give up. Just keep clicking.
For sure. And we can drop that in the chat if I can figure out how to use my computer again. Hey, look, it worked. And I think that's about it. If there's any other events that we don't know about, please feel free to share with us. We're excited to hear about it. We're excited to hear about your experiences and all that good stuff. Next slide, Squire. Oh, look at this. We've got stuff that's come up. Talking about deploying flow via change set. And then Laura D had questions. Is Laura D on? I see Laura. Hi, Laura. So we'll get started with the deploying flow via change sets. Squire, do you have any context around that?
Hey, Joy, before you get started, we live in troubling times. I just want to say, no, I'm serious about this. I know you're gonna laugh a little bit, but I'm taking over.
Where are you going, Stu?
I was reminded by one of the callers, one of the important people we have on the call, Andrew Russo, reminded me of this last week. In our community, we have people that live in all sorts of different places. We all work at different places. We all have different roles and whatever, and we all have different struggles that we're going through at different times. One thing I like about our community is that we care about each other. And so regardless of, whether you're having Salesforce issues or whatever, take the time to, if you see someone struggling out there on whether it be social media or if you get an email from someone that needs help, be mindful, be careful about how you interact with people. The words that you use do matter. And so I know that everyone, you might joke around the call or whatever. I might joke around the call, but I do care for your well-being. So if you have anything that you need help with, reach out to me. But we all come from different places and we work at different places, but we have a very blessed community that we do care about each other. And so I appreciate all of you. And I know if you're in a place that you're having a hard time, you need help, do reach out for help, even if it's just someone to listen to or a shoulder to cry on. That's also our community is here for that. I just want to say that, and thank you, Andrew, for also having a good heart, and mentioning when you see things that aren't right. Appreciate that too.
Stuart,
Probably just end the meeting right now. That's a pretty good video right there.
all the mush. I love it. I love it. Stuart, this is why we do this, right? That's why we do it. You made me all warm and fuzzy, Stuart. Thank you. Do you guys have anything to say? Everyone got hearts for Stuart, because we got all hearts for Stuart. All right, Stu. I appreciated that. So crazy world.
So yeah, so now we're gonna get to the not so squishy stuff, but we still appreciate you, Stu. So over between the last meeting and now, we had some private messages from one of our teammates asking about some help to deploy flows with a change set. And so everyone that was kind of contacted did their best to help. What I think it's the message I want to leave here, and then we'll circle back if we've got time, is, let's see, how do I want to say this? We all definitely want to help with anything we can help with. But there's like a kind of a dotted line about where it can be dangerous for one of us to step in and help with something like helping a coworker deploy something when there's not what appear to be like any governance or any like assistance. We don't want to leave a fellow admin left holding the bag or break something remotely and be like, sorry. So I think the message was, we really tried to help the best we can by sending links and giving some knowledge and kind of then handing off and saying, I hope you can figure this out. Please let us know if we can keep directing you. But I think the takeaway from here is I wanted to kind of just get a feel from everyone on the call about their feelings on that space. And maybe Joy, you want to start, because you and I were the ones that were really the most engaged. Like, how does everyone feel about diving into someone else's org and just trying to help do things that could go bleep up?
So the fine line here that I don't ever want to cross with anyone is directing someone to do something that could really cause problems. I also don't want to be liable for the work that you might do in your space.
Or their livelihood.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be the reason that like you have a problem in your job, in your office, and neither does anyone here, I don't think. So we can advise you on best practices. We can advise you on where to get more information. We can advise you on like where that switch is that you need to flip to do the thing that's not working. But sometimes it's much bigger than that. And if you're asking us to help you deploy, you are now asking for a contracted engagement from someone who will take on that liability. And that's kind of where we have to draw the line, because I'm not employed by your company. And if, I were to like send something or do something or tell you to do something that was wrong, I don't want that to like come back and bite either of us on the tail. And so I just want to be very aware of where we're at with that. And, by all means, I want to give you all the resources that we can possibly help you find. But at some point, we can't carry that load for you. So just know that we want to help, we want to help, we want to help, but we can't do that sort of stuff for people. But there's lots of folks on this call that I bet work for companies that would love to be engaged in a contract to help you.
Absolutely.
So, so with that being said, is there anything else you wanted to add, Squire, or does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? No? Yes? No? Okay.
Cool. All right.
Andrew?
I
Andrew,
appreciate the sounding board. Yeah.
Andrew, stop making changes in production.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh,
All
only
right.
in your dev, and only in your dev org. Okay. Laura.
And
Files
Laura
information.
did join. So this is a great
Yeah,
question, and I would love to get your current version of the original question and how, if you've had any help. So do you mind taking it away, Laura?
Sure. I get
Awesome.
into the group, so I'm like, okay.
Welcome.
So we're in the process of, like, restructuring using permission sets, that kind of thing, kind of like rebuilding our permission structure.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of packages and Salesforce products that we've added, and as well as custom stuff. But the biggest thing I'm running into is, like, one example is, like, well, number one, the permissions for the admin profile just seem like they're overwhelming. It's like, you've got everything there. And like, one of the things I ran into specifically was, like, looking at the admin profile, admin, to see if I had access to an Apex class, or it had access to an Apex class. And that crashed when I brought up the Apex classes because it was too big. Salesforce said, yeah, we know about it, but, we don't know if we're going to fix it. So it just kind of occurred to me that it almost seems like, as people are, like, bringing things into permission sets to help, whether that should kind of be a direction for the system admin profile as well, to move them into permission sets. So it was kind of the gist of my question.
And you had a couple responses. So I wasn't, did anything land, or did anything kind of help you start to resolve this yourself?
Well, and again, I think that in some areas, yeah, I mean, it was a great response, and it is nice. It's one of the comments was that the profiles won't go away completely, but as far as the answer, I was just more looking for some feedback, because it's taking that plunge of saying, maybe moving things out of the system admin profile and putting them in permission sets. And is that a good idea? because again, it's something I think everybody has to choose for themselves if they do it that way. And my biggest thing is, I'm just kind of worried that, maybe that's too drastic. And is it a bad idea? Mostly. So.
Yeah, no, great questions. Does anybody want to try to summarize everything?
Everything I know about, yeah. Well, let me say this. The system administrator profile is a very special snowflake. In as much as it is the keys to the kingdom. I can't imagine that particular profile, like, ever going away. You have to have some way to say this person has the keys to the kingdom, right? You literally cannot have an org without at least one sysadmin. And so it would shock me if that were a thing that went away entirely. To your point, however, about moving towards permission sets, as you create customizations, having those in permission sets that the sysadmin also has makes a ton of sense. But I don't. So I think it's an and, not an or, in that particular case, unless you have created a unless you have cloned the sysadmin profile and there is I struggle to think of a circumstance where that wouldn't be how you should do things. But again, everything changes, 3 times a year. So your mileage may vary. Please consult your attorney. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, most organizations have this debate and our organization is having this debate right now. We have some managers, directors that want to move all of our, well, I mean, the majority of our system administrators into a new profile called administrator read only, just to close down what, they want to give them system administrator roles, but read only, so they're not changing things. And then they saw, oh, look at these, all these people have view all data and modify all data. Well, that's a no. Can you have modify all and view all data? But then they tried to take that off. Well, there's a problem with that. And the problem with that is that, do you want to do data cleansing? Do you want to do deduplication? Do you want to do mass deletion? Do you want to do mass transformation? Do you want to manage record approvals? Do you want to do things with your data in a mass way? Well, you need, you need view all data and modify all data in order to do those things. Do you need to manage or delegate, delegate throughout the organization? You need those rights in order to do that. Do you need to manage third-party app exchange applications? Unfortunately, you need those rights in order to do that. So it all comes down to, what are your business requirements? What are the capabilities that you need inside of your Salesforce CRM? Just a lot of it matters. It matters what your organization is trying to do. You could lock everything down if that's your policy, but it all comes down to policy.
Can I ask a clarifying question about, I'm a little confused about the profile being large, because it's there's only so many permissions you can assign to a profile. Is it that if you have them all checked off, you can't access Apex classes? That I've never heard of that before.
Well, so I mean, and again, to me, just in working through building out these permission sets, one thing to me, it feels like, okay, more granular as far as the permissions go, maybe will help to say, oh, okay, well, here is this particular application, here's their permissions. But yeah, if with our system administrator profile, with everything we have installed, if I go to the profile and I click the admin Apex classes, it errors out with
the
internal error.
packages.
So because there are so many Apex classes, you can't even view them. So the only way I can access that is either one by one on the Apex classes, which we've got a lot, or to go out to the actual, I can't remember the name of the object, but to go out and query it directly and say, okay, give me all of the Apex classes. So really the Apex classes is what kind of generated my thoughts on it. But
I just wonder, if you create separate permission sets, but then still assign all of them to the same person, are you going to run into the same issue if they have access to all those classes?
Well, the crash is in the interface of assigning access to the Apex. That's where it's falling apart, right?
well, it's
Laura?
even looking at it. I mean,
Right.
in other words, yeah, and assigning, you're right. Because if I'm trying to remember what I did now, but yeah, it's actually just managing the permissions to those profile or to those.
Not the
classes.
classes themselves, just
Right.
giving access to the classes in the interface.
Right. It maxes out the view state.
Yeah.
So, basically it just can't show you everything. And so therefore you can't manage anything. And that was my thing, is it was like, we had gotten a permission set from a vendor who we installed their package. And so I was trying to go out, we were having some issues, and I was trying to go out and say, oh, okay, well, does the administrator have access to this Apex class that they've got in their permission set? And I couldn't do it that way. I had to go out and query the object to say, hey, is this set up right? So that's kind of what brought up my question.
And I think the error you don't want to do it this way. You don't want things to crash to design a strategy. But I think what you've come across with this one, this example, is a reason why you might define a technical strategy to say, you know what, we're going to build a permission set by app. And then we know we can just assign the permission set to one or more people or groups, because we know if we start trying to get granular at a class by class basis, we can't get there until that bug is fixed. But now you set up a a condition that you can rely upon as you continue to build out your permission set strategy, right? You can, it's not, some people go by persona, some people go by function, some people go by app. You know, you might be in a situation like, you know what, we're going to make sure all of our install packages have a very specific permission set that we've defined, even if it's cloning, to ensure that we can assign it in a way that is thoughtful and supportable, and we move forward. Like, right, like you start to like generate an idea and then build it versus building it and being like, oh no, what do we do now? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking as well is, you know, for example, you know, this particular application that I'm building the profiles and permission sets out for, you know, it's like, you know, if you had something like that, and again, maybe it's even just leaving the profile as is, but also building these permission sets to better manage them. But if I, you know, if I have a list of, okay, here's what it takes to run this application with everything involved, then I can go out and start dissecting that for user permissions, that kind of thing. And just as far as a management perspective.
Sure.
But one of the other not questions, but here's a thought I've run into is that, you know, again, one of the problems there is that, like, if we install a managed package or we have a contractor come in and install a package, a lot of times they'll, you know, say deploy to all profiles. Well, then you got to go clean them up out of the individual profiles. So, but what I'd like to start doing is, and I don't know if this is part of the issue, but because what I'm thinking of is having them say, okay, well, let's create a brand new profile just for this application, and then have them install it to that profile as well as the system administrator. So you can see exactly what permissions they are installing for that app, and then you could move those into a permission set. So, you know, again, it's maybe not necessarily, I mean, I haven't had the guts to actually remove like Apex classes from the system admin, but maybe it does just make sense, even just for a management perspective, to move them into permission sets or duplicate them in permission sets, I guess. But then that seems like a waste.
I would
So-
be cautious with removing stuff from the admin one, because to be completely honest, if you've got managed packages, it's really hard to see, and you can't see what's in a managed Apex class. So there's a lot of times that a developer will have one Apex class that calls a method in another, and where if you start removing one, like, it's going to be half impossible trying to figure out exactly what Apex class an end user or even the admin needs to do stuff. But one thing you should try, I've got in my org, I just looked up 7,587 Apex classes. So I've got the same issue where, like, I can't do a lot of editing in the UI for them. You can get a little, if you turn off, it's either turn it off or on the enhanced profile view. That will help you a little bit. You still have to do like really small amounts, so it might work still. I did that when I had a big thing like a year ago with that issue. The other thing is using like, it's kind of a pain, but using the XML in SFDX, like in VS Code, you can modify it and then push it back into Salesforce for managing it. But honestly, I wouldn't try and take Apex classes off of the system admin. And most AppExchange apps, they don't tell you what Apex classes are needed for different roles of users. They just kind of expect you to give them all the Apex classes for that app if they're going to have access to it or not.
Yeah.
And they manage security through object and field level. I'd say almost every app, I don't know of any that tell you, hey, you don't need to give this Apex class to others. The other thing too, if you remove it from the admin profile, the second you go to update it and you have to choose either install for admin or all users, when you do admin, it's going to re-push those in, I'm pretty sure, back into the admin profile.
Yeah,
also
that's
never
true.
install for all users, because that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I've had a few contractors that have done that, and it's like, okay, well, now I got to go take all that stuff out. So, yeah. So let me ask you this. So as far as moving to permission sets, here's another thought. Is it a good idea to, well, I think maybe we're answering, it's the same thing. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think I have a
okay.
question. Mostly I was getting at is, so as far as even the user permission sets, so we say with Apex classes again, what do you think would be the best as far as keeping, so like when we build the permission sets and profiles for the users, we're going to take as much as we can out of the profiles. Is it still a good idea to try to give that profile everything it needs or bring those into permission sets. Because in a sense, you might have a profile that's pretty generic and they have access to lots of systems. So you would end up with a big messy profile for the users that have tons of Apex classes in them. So that's another thought.
Well, what's the reason for making the change? Like, are you looking to make this change because you want to be compliant with Spring 26, where your permissions cannot reside within the profile? Or are you making this change because you want to be better organized?
Well, I mean, so again, for say a user that has access to one particular package and they have, basic Salesforce, but they have access to only one package. So the question is, when I build a profile, do I include all Apex classes in that profile? Like, in other words, because, kind of what you talked about, the dependency, you've got to have enough access in that profile, or do you move those to permission sets? Because then, like I said, if you have a generic user, like an executive or something, and they have access to a bunch of different systems, do you want to try to put all those Apex classes in individual profiles? Or if we move those to the permission sets, then you can assign permission sets for all these different users. Because like if you've got an executive who has access to every system, they're going to end up with the same problem. We're going to have all the Apex classes in their profile.
From a future facing perspective, one thing that is going to change with partners is that when they create a tool and they put it in as a package, they will not be able to, like, this process that you're describing is going to have to change, basically, because the access to an Apex class is a permission, and that's going to move off of the profile. So from a long-term view, after Spring 26, there's only one answer to the question. It's a permission set.
Well, yeah, because like
is.
if I'm versus even just them installing it to all profiles or whatever. But again, if I build a profile from scratch, so like I built one now recently, but we're moving to this more granular. So I built a permission set and I basically included all the Apex classes, and so everybody had installed for all users. So I took the user, the profile has pretty much all the permission sets, and I cloned it, and then I started manipulating, pulling things out of the permission set and moving them into out of the profile and moving them into permission sets. But again, there it's like, okay, I've got a bunch of garbage Apex classes. I call them garbage because this user is never going to need access to Apex classes for FFA. They only need it for this one installed package. So.
Right.
And is that going to the profile, or did we move those out of the profile as well and put them in permission sets?
So the easiest way to think about post Spring 26, what's going to be in a profile, what's going to be in a permission set, is if you can have more than one of that thing, it's going to be in a permission set. If you can have one and only one, it will reside in the profile. So for example, your default app, you can only have one default. That default app will still reside in the profile. But access to all of these classes that you're talking about, those will be through permission sets. And so part of this migration is, like I said, they're going to actually change the way that the tools are built. And everyone who builds a third-party tool on the platform will have to add it to permission sets. And then you will just simply assign the permission sets. So this install for all users thing will shift, right? And it hasn't happened yet. So Safe Harbor, no idea what that's going to look like. But it is a necessary change for the stated change that's going to happen. One thing that I think is really important to parse out is the installed package Apex versus Apex that a sound development practice would produce. Because if you're writing Apex, you should be considering the levels of access needed for that Apex. A lot of managed packages don't do this. They just have access, right? And so if it's just access, well, then put it in the specific permission set that you're going to use to regulate that access, and don't worry about it on the profile. Just assign that permission set to the groups or users that need it. If you're talking about, I'm developing Apex, well, then we get into something separate, which is the code probably does a variety of levels of access. Like maybe you can just see it Maybe you're allowed to see and edit, and maybe you're allowed to see, edit, and delete. And if that's the case, then we need to use another tool like a custom setting. And then you reference that and you say, okay, does this user, or not custom setting, custom permission, sorry. Does this user have the custom permission that allows them to edit or allows them to delete, or even does it allow them to see it? And then you're assigning two things. You're giving them access to the class and the relevant permission for how they will interact with that class. And both of those need to go together, but both of those will live in the permission set as well.
I
Does
like
that
where
make
you're,
sense?
I like where you're going, Mike. In fact, in this perfect future that you're talking about, not only will that managed package, the Apex classes in there be, written for the specific permissions and the specific users that it's right, but it'll have specific feature flags written in there so that me as a customer
Right.
can decide which feature flags to turn on and turn off for specific user groups or permissions, and
Mhm.
say, well, actually, I don't need to use that particular capability at this point in time, or turn it on and off based on which user sets I'm going to turn it on for.
Right.
And I think what you're focusing on here too, Mike, I'm going to put words in your mouth, is I'm going to go back to something I heard you say, Laura, which is there isn't going to be a profile that does everything in the future. You should be thinking about permissions as individually assigned boxes, and each of those boxes, it represents a set of access. And so you're not going to say the system admin has access to all Apex classes. You're going to say, here's the permission set for the Apex classes for this feature or this function, and you're going to assign 10 unique permission sets, not build one that does everything. And that's kind of, I think, what you were saying, Mike, is there's going to be, when there's just one thing, they sit in the profile. Then there's lots of things, they sit in permission. That's that change, that thought process that you have to go to. You can still use a public group, or a permission set group to try to do it faster, but you don't want to have one thing that controls everything.
Yeah, one.
That's where it's
I think
going, right?
where this whole thing, it sounds like, started from was just managing Apex classes with the admin profile. Realistically, if you've got a lot of Apex classes, look at namespaces. Your end users who are using a managed package, if they're going to need access to managed package, they probably in 90% of the case are going to need all of the Apex classes in the namespace. If you look at the Apex class name, you'll see the namespace. Give them the name, all of the ones from the namespace. You might make a permission set with it, because chances are the developer of it is not going to tell you for each role they need this Apex class, this to do a bunch of stuff. Just in reality, doing that for end users, and then if they are going to have access to the package and they need to use it, you would give them the permission set that has those Apex classes. Maybe it's just part of the Apex classes that give permissions for the objects and fields. Then for the admin, you can assign those and overlap them onto just the admin users. Realistically, though, think about an org that's new. Salesforce isn't going to have you log into an org as you set up a brand new org and you have to go assign yourself like 20 permission sets and stuff. They're going to end up in a future state probably having an admin permission set that has all of the stuff that comes out of the box on the admin profile. Like in a future state, I wouldn't focus on trying to deconstruct the admin profile right now. Just focus on how do you give end users what's needed, and whatever you give to end users, give to yourself in terms of permission sets. Throw them all in one group that you can have it assigned to you. Also assign them into a group. It's more performant. If you have one group assigned to you with 30 permission sets, that is more performant than assigning 30 permission sets directly to you as a user. So
Just out of
thoughts there.
curiosity, when you said FFA, are you dealing with financial force packages?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, we have financial force, and we also have a consultant that's building extra things for it in there. So we have their
Sure.
code
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of packages and features, products that of Salesforce. And
Yeah.
so that's where it's building crazy. So one of the comments in the reply I got, and also what I've kind of heard you guys say, is do we think that where they're saying that permission sets or profiles are going to go away, except for, like the default app, do we think that it's going to go away for system admin?
So it is
Well,
going
aren't
away
going to go away.
universally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah. So sorry. Permissions universally will not reside on the profile. Very different from saying the profiles are going away, because profiles are still a very critical part of our system. But you just won't have any permissions on it. So the easiest way to get the nuance on that is like, if you go into a permission set, if you can add it in a permission set, it will no longer live in the profile. Right?
One thing that's important that everyone should realize, which I don't know how much I can say about this in detail since it'll go online, but when the light switch flips or whatever, when it like this change actually happens where it's like enforced, Salesforce is not leaving anyone high and dry if they haven't moved to a permission set based structure. There are, and I've talked to the team, there are things that are in the background that are happening which will allow for pretty much seamless continuity. And for the companies who have already set up and been planned for this and embraced it, they will just turn off a functionality that'll be there in the background to make sure that no one loses permission. So it's not like all overnight in a release, they're going to just take everything off of the profile. There's going to be it's going to move to effectively, like, think of a permission set that almost matched what the profile was, and then assign that to the users with the profile.
So
It's not like you need to be scared of the date that this switches.
So hypothetically then, so let's say they do something like that. And I would imagine the idea would be kind of like they do with process builders and that, where if it exists, you can keep working with it, but you can't add anything new. So like if they did that and said, okay, well, great, you can do this, but you can't add any more permissions to the system admin profile. So when you do get a new app, then again, and again, I don't think anybody can answer this right now, but again, part of the question will be, will you be able to even add the new ones to that system admin profile? So then you got a mixed bag.
Can I need to interrupt here really quick. I think this is a great topic. There's a lot that we're learning about this conversion. Like Mike said, it's coming in 26. So we've got multiple releases. There's gonna be a lot more documentation. I want to make sure we have time for Daniel and Sarah's questions. So I'm going to ask if we can pause this, but Laura, keep coming back and asking more questions, or start a dialogue in the success group and we can keep talking about this. There's a lot to learn. And I think if I can get like a thumbs up from everyone, I think we're all in agreement that they're not going to just turn off permissions or profiles. There's going to be probably a conversion path. It's going to be fully documented, no surprises. And I know, Cheryl has been working really hard on giving everyone some comfort in what that's going to look like as it happens. Is that all true statements? Did I miss anything?
Just like Classic, if you're still on Classic, you're not going to be able to log in. That's the
Sure.
Stuart, you're off. We're muting you.
Okay, sorry. Have a good day.
Stuart.
Thank you so much,
Missed you,
guys.
Stu.
Yeah,
Thank
please
you
keep
so
coming back
much.
and keep asking questions. I hate to cut you off. I just want to make
Oh
sure. we
no,
get
that's totally
Daniel and
fine.
Sarah.
It's you can go forever and ever and try to dissect it. So, but
Sure.
I appreciate it, and it was great information. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for helping. I hate doing that. I wish we could go all day. So, all right, I'm going to jump over to Daniel. Daniel, you had a DevOps question or topic of some sort, and I'm loving DevOps, so I want to hear all about it.
Okay, so I'm not smart like you guys. I'm really struggling with DevOps Center, and I get to this whole GitHub side of it, where you're looking at semicolons, way more semicolons than I ever want to see in my life, and I'm just like, why do I have to do this? But along the way, I'm looking at DevOps Center, and I'm working through my environments, and what's happening is I get one of them stuck. Right. One of them failed in testing.
Yeah.
And I can't bring it backwards out of this environment. Now these other ones are all queued up in the same environment, and they can't move on until the first one is done. It's like, whoa, so how do I reconfigure this? Now I have to either spin up a new what do you call it?
Pipeline?
A new a new test environment, which I'm not going to do that. But I got something stuck in UAT in my full backup.
Yep. So there's no reversal, like you said. There's no way to back out a change from a work item. It's only move forward or kill it effectively. The workarounds that they're publishing right now is just to deploy something that solves the error. I think the thing that I'm a little bit surprised by is, so you're getting a failure at the full sandbox on a test, like as a test failing, or like what is the error you're getting on the deployment?
I've got several. I've got one that was in an integration partial. So when we moved it to UAT, it passed in the integration, but when you get it to UAT, oh, there is one piece we didn't remember, right? We didn't get this. So that one legit failed. We got to rework this and then push it. So I can't pull it back. But these other pieces are something is waiting to test.
Okay.
And it is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I expect it to work. But the other pieces that touch the same object, they can't move forward because this one moved into that environment first.
Right.
And it's still waiting to test. All these others are also waiting to test. And we tested them, they work, but they can't be promoted.
Yep.
I'm just like, now we're all blocked up until
Yep.
someone comes back from vacation.
Well, so
what's the deal with that? All right, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So I want to like fill in a couple gaps just to make sure I'm on the same page. So don't forget that nothing you're doing is permanent. Like, that pipeline is just a Git repo that's deploying to sandboxes. If it does or doesn't, it doesn't stop anything other than the project itself. So like in a worst case scenario, you could just turn off the project, start a new project, grab your changes from your sandboxes and just do it all again in the right order. Like there's nothing blocking you from just bailing. It's not what I'd like to be able to do. You should be able to roll back, or with the new feature where you combine changes into a single deployment so you can fix some of these problems. That's the one thing that you're going to be able to do, but maybe not in this case. Do you have a bundling stage in your project?
We did, and we got rid of that because we realized real quickly, now we really have to go. If something fails, we have to go take it out of the bundle. So now it's like, oh no. So
yeah.
we got rid of that.
Yeah.
We didn't like that. So I don't know if we're doing it right or wrong, or we should have a bundle at UAT, right? But we quickly said no to that.
Yeah. So bundling is a tool that is really valuable because it takes some of the staging that you're talking about. Like sometimes there's a sequence of events that like work out on 1 gets there before 2, and so now 2 can't get there. If you bundle, 1 and 2 are now 3, and it all goes. Right? It's not staging multiple changes. So that's why the bundle is really valuable. Karen would love to talk in detail about whether that bundle should be early or late in your process. So that's a different thing entirely. And then I think the third thing is that as far as what you're talking about, are all of these changes correlated to the same feature that you're building, or are they like multi-features that are bumping into each other?
No, these are 2 different people that wanted to change on the same object and completely unrelated, completely different business lines. Like they really don't have any relation, but one happened first.
Sure.
That's all.
So when person 1 did their work and deployed it or promoted it, did person 2 sync that change down?
Yes.
So their change should be fully integrated with the first change, and you said you didn't have any conflicts, but you're not able to deploy to the sandbox. That's where the gap is?
I can't promote one to production because the other one hasn't tested in UAT in the full sandbox.
Right. So
we expect them.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I already said that we expect them all to work, but we just haven't tested it, so it cannot be promoted without SOX controls, right? So, and the person's not there to test it. So how do I take this piece back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't take it out of your project currently.
I see now why
there's no rollback. Basically, the only way to roll it back is to deploy another change that basically undoes the work in the current state of DevOps. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the success group, I don't know if you've been out there, but the the DevOps success group is really active, and they might be able to address some of that. Like, actually, that team's changed a little bit, but the posts there are responded to pretty quickly. You might be able to get some help to kind of resolve this thing. Have you done that?
This is my first. I've been looking online and then I came here to actual people here first. So
Yeah, the success group is great. It's not even the GitHub repo where you can submit issues. The success group is great.
okay.
But for right now, I mean, I can confirm that you can't roll back. With Winter 24, you can merge work items so they deploy together, not individually. If that's the problem, it doesn't sound like it is.
Right. This is looking less like an agile and more like a waterfall, in that we all go together as a project or nothing goes. And that's the part I'm kind of frustrated with.
Yeah, and it really has to do with how you plan your pipeline, because if you are using that DevOps tool, like I'll use the word aggressively, you should be able to orchestrate your changes so you're not stepping on each other's toes. You can also do things with multiple project flows so that they get to like you could start a pipeline at UAT and pick up all new changes to UAT and deploy those as one work item. Like you end up having multiple projects, but right now you're experiencing exactly how the tooling works. I've done a lot of talking. Does anybody want to jump in? Is anybody else doing any work in DevOps?
I think it's fair to point out that DevOps Center is still a really new tool, and it's got a lot of really amazing potential, because the underlying tool, which is this idea of a remote repository of source of truth, which is, for most of us like a GitHub or GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever, those tools don't have this problem. Like it's already built, right? And eventually we'll have the feature richness that makes this not be a big issue.
So, and I think to add to that, I mean, some of the issues that most people are experiencing is it's not about the repo at all. It's about the deployment, because it's still just using the change set engine to get from your repo to your sandboxes. So that's a weird and kind of almost uncomfortable experience when you've used things like a Capado, which doesn't care at all, right? So I agree with you. There's and I think even if you talk to Karen Fidelic about it, she has a long-term roadmap that's not even close to being complete, but the tooling is there. It's just there's some pain points like what you're dealing with right now, Daniel.
So real quick, is a possible solution to have separate projects per admin?
I would say my opinion is that that's the worst case scenario. You should have a single project pipeline for a sandbox. It's more about having better understanding of the orchestration and the sync process, and a bundle will save you every time.
Okay.
But only if it's the testing and the merging is working as you expected.
Okay, thanks guys.
It's not a great answer, I'm sorry. All right, quick time check. We got 7 minutes. Sarah, it's a slam dunk, right? You just need us to give you a thumbs up and you're all good?
Well, we'll see, but we'll see how far we can get. It's a mysterious problem that I posted in Ohana Slack about it, and Evan Ponter couldn't recreate it. So I don't know if it's just something weird with my flow or not, but can I share my screen?
Yeah, hold on. I have to let everybody do that 1 second here.
Okay.
All right, you may go.
Okay, so here, I'm just going to show you the behavior that is happening that is bizarre. I have a flow that allows us to update some preferences for camp. And I was adding a reactive screen component that is making this character counter. Pretty cool, right? If you exceed your characters, blah, 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 not only does this little thing pop up, but if you click this button down here, which is the unofficial SF flow button bar component, I've set up some validation, so it doesn't let you move on. That's all great, right? You can see in the debug log here that the navigation bar component, and maybe this is where part of the problem is I'm testing. Oh, I just might have solved my problem. Maybe this is a slam dunk. Because there's two different screens that have buttons. But what I was noticing is that even if I fix this problem, when I click save, now the value of that button is saving as null instead of the value that I clicked. And that's the part that I'm confused about. And it's ending my flow instead of doing what it's supposed to do. So if we go into the flow itself, here's that screen. We can see this button bar is configured to have 2 buttons, cancel and save preferences. Theoretically, when you click save preferences, it should store that value that you can then access in the decision right here. I'm accessing the value from that button bar. And if it's save preferences, do this thing. And if it's not, go over here. And it's not saving that value. But only after the validation rule triggers. So if we run the debug again, and we click update preferences, and let's say I don't trigger the validation rule, right? Like I don't go over my character limit and I click save preferences, it does save the value. So I don't know what's going on with that. Any ideas? Is this just like weird interactions between?
Sarah, can you do that again?
Yeah.
The failed one.
The failed one? Okay, so to fail it, I do a validation error, click save preferences. Of course, it's not like saving the value that time because it didn't actually go anywhere.
Okay.
So then I fix the validation error and I click save preferences and the value doesn't save.
It's not seeing the screen update.
But-
It's just the
but-
component, right?
But you
Yeah.
already clicked save
Once.
once. So did that do
And I don't-
something?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if like it's like the double clicking of that button and there's something going on in it. Here's the values you can see, it's null.
Yep.
But it also knows that I clicked it because it went ahead
Yeah.
and did the behavior of going to next.
Mm-hmm.
So does
So-
this do an assignment by default?
Yeah, I don't know how that button works, but what I did try doing is I have a different version of it where I assigned it, in the component, we can assign it, assign the variable or assign the value to a
Yeah,
variable.
you got a variable.
That also doesn't work. So
Oh.
you can see here that variable also got a null value. So when I use that in my decision, that doesn't work either. And it's just very bizarre to me. I've never seen something like this. And I tried removing the button and adding a new button and reconfiguring it. That didn't fix it. But
So go ahead, Steve, sorry.
Well, I've got an idea that totally breaks the whole concept of reactive
Okay.
screen, which is if you put in a next button
mhm,
and then went back, which I know this sounds weird, but because they've added this whole, when you go back to the screen, then it
yeah,
restores your previous values. I'm interested to see what happens there.
yeah,
Like there might be a bug here
Tried.
that where it's not retaining your previous.
right. Like this is not,
Yeah. But
Working.
that's not happening.
yeah,
And I understand it's not going to grab your variable because your variable
Right.
happens at the beginning of the screen. I've seen that happen in some of my
Okay.
testing.
yeah.
But why it won't refresh? Like, yeah, it's just it won't.
And like, even if I switch it to being this, so refresh it based off of it, it doesn't happen. It's just weird to me that it'll do it the first time, but not the second time. And there's some weird interaction. Maybe it is just a bug because this stuff is kind of new.
I wonder if because that's Alex Edelstein's buttons, right?
Yeah,
Well, so that's been around for a really long time. I wonder if there's just something weird happening where the controller is not being used because it
Mhm.
already, do you know what I mean? Like there's like the weird
Yeah.
interplay between talking to the button
Yeah.
and giving it all of the information because
right.
like we stopped that, we killed it. Like now from here, what
Yeah.
about that is actually being refreshed? That part's not. It persisted.
Right.
So we may have
Like,
already told the
'cause-
button that we're dead.
Right. Yeah, because like I just don't know like if the buttons work, if you've triggered a validation, because this is a validate input on this text box component, which is separate from the
Yeah.
reactive screen thing. I think the reactive screen thing actually is a red herring and doesn't have anything to do with the issue.
Yeah,
It's more
they're
the,
completely separate. The reactive once you press that save button, the reactive stuff is
yeah, it's gone.
It's
Yeah.
irrelevant.
But it's the validate input, and this button bar is somehow not happy with each other.
Well, but I don't think so. If you rebuilt this entire thing without the reactiveness,
Yeah.
I think you could have that validation up there and it would proceed just fine. I
Okay.
think it's that the validation lives within the reactivity. And that
But it
it is
doesn't.
not.
Because so it's two different things going on, and maybe I've confused things here, but the validation that's stopping it is just this regular validate input on the component.
But isn't the component within the reactive portion of your screen?
I mean, I use the output from this to do the reactive portion formulas here.
That's
So
what I'm
maybe.
getting at. I'm wondering
Okay.
if like the communication between the two components isn't there because the one
Oh.
component was made before we knew about reactive screens.
Got it.
And so it's no longer being spoken to, but it was told what to do.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
maybe.
the only thing I can think of because like what else?
Yeah,
It's not-
right. Totally. Okay. Well, I'll keep
Um,
playing around with this, but
Completely apropos of nothing, but I'm curious, isn't there a better way to make sure you get a phone number than to limit the characters in a phone number field?
yeah, except so I've talked with my programs team about this, and sometimes people like to put in home phone number, mobile phone number, and they don't want two fields. They want it in one text field, blah, blah. Anyway,
Okay.
There's also like 1-800 Squire Kirshner, if they wanted to enter that and then have it validate to a number.
yeah.
I
But we've
mean, I
had-
guess I was just like, can't you just make the field 40 character limit and not have a validation?
I
Interesting.
think the only way to validate, because this is just a text box on the flow, and so you have to validate it with the validate input. You can't, I mean, I could make it a field
That
and
is
just use
that
the
is
dynamic fields.
that's one weird thing about the Salesforce phone number field is it by its nature it doesn't do any sort of like mapping or validating at all. And so
Yeah.
if you want to validate it with something real, you have to build something or integrate with something that will
Yeah.
transform it into
Sure.
a real phone number.
Yeah, no, totally get it. All right, cool.
Anyway,
I
It's
don't
a
get to
weird
build
problem.
anything cool, so I had to learn something today.
yeah. Anyway, reactive screens are still fun. So, but
Oh,
I will see if
They're
it's
so
like some
fun.
weird interactive thing. There's something weird going on, and it might just be that, I mean, unofficial SF components, they're unofficial for a reason.
Fair enough.
But they're fun. Yeah, I play with one every
I love
day.
them.
They're
Yeah.
great.
Oh, me too.
I feel
Alright.
like Alex
Thanks,
Edelstein
y'all.
is so smart. He would just go, "Oh, it's this."
Right. Maybe I should just
Time.
message him.
It is time to say goodbye. I really
Yeah.
appreciate all of you today.
Sorry.
But it's time to go back to work.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we thank all of you for playing along. Oh hey, sorry, before we drop off, Rochelle, are you still on? I see you in the
Yes, I am.
cool. Would you stay on after we end the call?
Sure, I can. That'd be fine.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm gonna scold you after class.
All
I
right.
was gonna say, it sounds like detention.